This is DearPsychopomp. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Today, I got locked out of the house. We have this weird lock on our back door, and the dog jumped up and closed it. And so I was locked out of the house for just under an hour. And it gave me forced time to think. And I'm grateful for it, even though it hurts and it sucks, but it was actually sort of needed. So, thanks, universe. I was sitting outside. It's spring here in BC, Canada, and there's a little poof kind of floating by, and I blew at it, and I made a wish. And it made me wonder if anyone had ever made a wish on it before. Was I the first one? Who have they whispered to? What have they seen? And somehow it made me think of my dad and all the wishes I had whispered into the air over the years. My father was an alcoholic. He hadn't been himself for years, and when he died, we were estranged. Which, anyone listening who has estranged family will know what I mean. There's a certain grief that comes with maintaining your boundaries with the ones that you didn't think would push them. And you're strong for doing that. It's we should make a new word for that type of grief, kind of like I'm sure there's words for it. Anyways. And then it made me think about other people with estranged parents and family and siblings and people who were once very close to you. And I'm not particularly awesome at leaving things left unsaid. It's a blessing and a curse. And so I know I said everything to my dad that I had wanted to say, that I needed to say. But today, when I was locked out of the house, I was reflecting on my day, and I dreamt about my dad last night. So of course he's on my mind more. He gave me something and said that he had such a hard time trying to raise me because by the time I could talk, I was already smarter than he was. And it made me grieve for what could have been, what should have been. Did I do the right thing with holding that boundary? And I think I did. And that's a difficult thing to admit because, of course, you want to be proven wrong. And then you have that disappointment with not being proven wrong because you're angry for yourself, for what you needed and wanted and deserved. And even after all that, with everything today, I was locked out of the house and I was like, man, I wish I could call my dad because he would tell me what to do. And then I was making dinner and I added too much water to the sauce packet. I was like, shit. Googling and trying to figure out how to thicken this up and reduce it and blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that comes to mind is like, I wish I could call my dad. He'd know what to do. And he'd probably make fun of me for it. Messing up a simple sauce. And it makes you think about the random good times with my loved one who was suffering with addiction. There were little glimmers of him every now and then that just gave me hope. And I never lost that hope, even after I stopped talking with him. And I know that he wanted to speak to me again. And I was stuck in my grief and my anger, and I rejected him. And living with the guilt of knowing that I had the chance to reconnect with my father before he died. But I know that he hadn't changed. None of my pleas worked. I tried bargaining, tried ultimatums. Nothing worked. And that's a really hard lesson for people who love addicts to learn, is that you cannot make someone change if they don't want to and they're not willing to work on it. And I'm sorry for anyone who can commiserate, because that's a crappy feeling. But on the brighter side of things, it makes me think about the people that I have started surrounding myself with, my chosen family, the people who support me and uplift me and challenge me, and then I remember that I'm happy. I'm still happy. I'm just also sad, especially today, and I don't know why. And I'm crying because the conflicting emotions are so confusing. And thank you so much for listening. I needed to kind of process that and share that, because I know I'm not alone. And I hate that I'm not alone, but I love that I'm not alone. It's a very Catholic built-in guilt. I was raised Catholic. Didn't stick. But don't worry, the guilt is still there. Yay, trauma. Anyone else here the scapegoat? Yeah? Golden child? Glass child? Forgotten child? We have such a burden on our shoulders in this generation. A burden and a blessing, because we have the ability and encouragement to seek help. We have the knowledge, things have words and meanings, and we understand mental health so much better now. And we have this intergenerational trauma that's been going on forever. And we're breaking the cycle, which we should be proud of. But it comes with a cost. But at the same time, that cost has led me to really sit down and think about who I am and who I want to be and who I want to become. And it's, I love that all of this started with a dandelion and being locked out of the house. At least it was a beautiful day here. Little scattered showers. I think the perfect temperature is about 15 degrees Celsius, slightly overcast, with periods of rain, and then a nice thunderstorm overnight. That sounds pretty dreamy. Anyways, I digress. I would like to know how you're feeling. My 30-somethings, my 40-somethings, even my 20-somethings. What are you working on? What cycles are you breaking? Is it with family? Is it with yourself? And I think that's important too, being able to pick boundaries for yourself. You deserve it. And if you have those boundaries with yourself and you have that inner strength, and then you don't have that guilt anymore. And I want you to think about your life. What is your general perspective on life? Is it mostly positive? Is it mostly negative? Mostly neutral? And as long as you're a decent human being about it and cause no harm to humans, animals, nature, or yourself, there's no best outlook to have. Your outlook is going to be shaped by your life, where you grew up, who it was with, what traumas and difficulties and triumphs you've faced, and by how well you know yourself or how far you've met yourself. Because you can only meet other people as deeply as you've met yourself. And meeting yourself, it gives you this sense of courage and passion and belonging and joy. And knowledge is the enemy of fear. The more that we know about a thing, the less afraid we are of it. So, I wanted to go over the basics of finding and deciding what your perspective on death is. If you don't really have one. If you're like, Anne-Marie, I don't know what happens. I was told this. I read this. It's okay. Let's get nerdy here. And the first place to start with picking your death perspective is your perspective on life. There's actually a significant correlation between your perspective on life and death. So the way people perceive death often influences how they approach life and vice versa. So let's ask ourselves some questions. What is your attitude towards impermanence? Do you see death as a natural part of life and live in the moment? Or do you fear death and live with that fear-driven existence? Are you a risk taker with your passions? Do you embrace uncertainty? Or are you cautious? Play it safe and focus on preservation of life at all costs. Do you have a spiritual framework? Maybe existential? What do you believe will happen after you die? Do you think there will be an afterlife? Or maybe you believe in reincarnation? If you don't have a spiritual or religious framework, do you place greater emphasis on creating personal meaning or achieving self-actualization, that nirvana? Another question to ask yourself is, what legacy do you want to leave when you die? Do you even want to leave your mark on the world? What do you want to accomplish with this life? Do you value achievements and recognition? Or maybe you value connections and presence instead? If you accept that death is a natural part of life, it really helps you cope better with loss and grief. Because accepting this mortality allows you to cherish life more deeply and live more intentionally. And if you come to peace with the concept of death, it can remove that fear and existential anxiety. You could live a more fulfilling and authentic life. And so with that, I did some research. And here are some examples of perspectives on death, including but not limited to biological perspective. So that's where you view that death is merely the cessation of life when an organism's body stops functioning. So it's more the physical process and biological factors that contribute to dying. People with a biological perspective tend to believe that nothing happens after we die. And then there's the philosophical perspective, where some see it as a final end, others think it's a transition to an afterlife or a different state of being. And for example, existential thinkers see death as an integral part of what gives life meaning, which urges individuals to live authentically. And of course, we have our religious perspectives, and different religions have, different views on death, of course. For example, Christianity often sees death as a transition to an eternal afterlife, heaven and hell, things like that. Buddhism teaches that death is part of the cycle of reincarnation. Hinduism, they also believe in reincarnation, where the soul is reborn until it reaches, what's it called? Moksha, which ends the cycle of death and rebirth. And, Islam sees death as a passage to an afterlife where you are then judged by God. There's also the cultural perspectives, of course, depending where you grew up, what your background is. Some people believe that death is a return to nature or the ancestors or a continuation of existence in a spiritual form. Western cultures, death tends to be seen as sort of like a final ending. I think that's why there's so much fear around it. But at the same time, it also comes with some really beautiful rituals for mourning and remembrance. And it's just beautiful. There's also the psychological perspective. So death can be feared because it's unknown, and it could be the end of your self-consciousness. But if you can accept the inevitability of it, then you can have psychological growth, be logical and stoic about it, live more fully in the present. If that's not your shtick, there's also the humanistic perspective, where death is viewed as just a natural part of life's journey. Emphasis is placed on living in a way that really enriches the human experience, understanding that death can actually give life meaning. This perspective often gives people fulfillment, and it helps them seek self-actualization and just cherish every moment. And keep in mind that you may not fully identify with just one of those. That's completely normal. Times a changing when it comes to religious and spiritual beliefs around the world. So sit down with yourself and decide what feels best for you. As for myself, I'm a mix of psychological, philosophical, and humanistic. I see death as a natural part of life. My perspective on death affects how I live my life. The more I accept it, the less scared I am. The more I live right here, right now. Is it hard? Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Every day. But wow, has it changed my life? I believe life is shaped by chance. I also believe in fate to a certain degree. I believe that life doesn't have an inherent meaning to it, that we make our own meaning along the way. I believe that generally people can be good. I believe that suffering plays an important role in life. I believe in science and magic. I like to think that magic is something that science just can't quite measure yet. Maybe one day. Maybe not. That's part of the beauty of the universe, keeping secrets from us. Some call death the last great secret. I also believe in the law of conservation of energy, that first, we are all made of energy. It is measurable. And second, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. So I take a lot of solace in that. When I die, I'm pretty excited to be reunited in spirit and energy with everyone I've loved and lost. And that includes all the animals too. I can see myself just surrounded by dogs and cats, birds, frogs, chickens, with my dad off to the side, just shaking his head and smiling while holding my first dog ever, Doug. If you've ever seen the movie Up, Doug is the dog's name, the one with the talking collar. And he's famous for, I have just met you and I love you. And that was Doug. I met him when he was 2 weeks old, and he made it to almost 17. He was a Pomeranian Terrier mix. And he taught me so many things and gave me unconditional love. And of course, in the end, the thing that got him was an enlarged heart. Even his heart was too big. It's hard with the animals, hey? And it never gets easier. I think grief is the sacrifice that we make with love. It's the price we pay for getting to exist. There are things we get to have, but we aren't allowed to keep. It's all about balance and cycles in the universe, and us humans are no different. I do believe that we can heal from the wounds on our souls, and that we can change. I think we just need reasonable expectations. Speaking for myself, I'm always looking for the adultier adult, but what if I were to be the adultier adult and just list out my expectations? This is what I expect from life. And it has to be reasonable. So, step number 1 with that, I want to dive deep with this with you. Do you care about what other people think about you? Yes or no? To the point where you give them more power in your mind than you have? Which probably leads to people pleasing, self-depreciation, and loneliness. Just speaking from personal experience. So your homework, should you choose to accept, is to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, why? Why do I care about what other people think about me? Write it down, type it out, voice memo, smoke signal, carrier pigeon, like something. And then next week, the next step in our adventure together will be, what are the reasonable expectations we can have with ourselves and others? The extended edition. You can find me online at www.DearPsychopomp.com or contact@DearPsychopomp.com by email. I hope your weekend is gentle and full of opportunities.